I just spoke to Mr. Barry and I just confirmed that it was positive and good for two. Because I don't want to become a good practice now in the other countries. I don't want to get some kid and all this. I need to take the stars. Is it like I should put it
That's where I looked up to.
listen.
Hello? Hello? I will send the link also. Okay. 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 Ghana, go outside. Okay, sir.
morning, gentlemen. Sorry, the HR said we should wait that the staff was around the other time. So we should wait until 11 hours. I think you get it. So what about? And I also want to keep cake for the cellular. Because I found the person that was going to keep the cake was that the staff was. So maybe we can just play the same moment. So I will start with that. Probably maybe instead of going back, you can comment. Where is the Alika? Alika is not. Okay. Okay. We'll have Sister Vivian. Can you conduct? Operator, the beginning of it, you guys conduct it.
Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. Let's thank God and begin to bless God for the beginning of another week and the beginning of another month. This is the 7th month of the year, and 7 means perfection. Rest. Let's thank God for His mercy over our lives. Let's thank Him for His mercy over our families. Let's thank Him for His mercy over equity assurance. Let's open our mouth and begin to pray. Father, Lord, we bless you. Ancient of days, we give you praise. It is of your mercy, O Lord, that we know because you. We thank you because in you we live, in you we move, in you we have our being. We thank you, O God, for your sustaining power. We thank you for your grace, O God. We thank you for the gift of life. We thank you for the miracle of sleeping and waking up on a daily basis. 1,001 people, we started this year together, a good number of them are no more. It's not because we are better than them, but it is your mercy that has kept us. It is your grace that has kept us. Father, we thank you for your steadfast love which never ceases. We thank you for your mercies which never come to an end. We thank you because they are new every morning. Open your mouth and bless God. We ply the roads on a daily basis. We journey on our foot, we journey in vehicles, we journey by air, different means of transportation. God has been keeping us. He's been keeping our families, He's been keeping the management. Day in, day out, they travel. They have cause to travel for one thing or the other. Let's bless God for His mercy. Let's bless God for keeping them. Let's bless God for His provision. Let's bless God for His mercy upon equity assurance. Yes, equity is still at the struggling stage. He's still struggling, but let's still thank God. Let's still thank God. Let's still thank God. Because I know the hand of God is upon this company. The hand of God is upon equity assurance. It is not so much of what we know how to do, but it is the mercy of God. The hand of God is upon this branch, no doubt about that. The hand of God is upon this branch. Father, we thank you. Lord, we bless you. Ancient of days, we give you praise, O God. We cannot thank you enough. If the whole of our head were tongues, they are not enough to thank you. Let's open our mouth and thank God. Let's open our mouth and thank God. Let's cultivate the habit of thanking God more than making requests. Let's cultivate the habit of thanking God more than making requests. Father, we thank you. Ancient of days, we worship you. King of glory, we bless you. We worship you, O God, for who you are. For who you are, with equity assurance, O God. We give you praise, O God. Let's thank you for the first half year. The figures may not be too good. We may not be where we hope that we have been, but let's still thank Him all the same. Let's still thank Him all the same. Let's thank Him all the same. He is the one sustaining equity assurance. So let's thank Him for the board. They just finished the board retreat over the weekend. Let's thank God for the board of this company. Let's thank God for the management. Let's thank God for every staff. Let's thank God for all our branches. Father, we thank you for keeping us, oh God. We thank you for keeping us, oh God. We thank you for keeping us, oh God. In Jesus' name. In the name of Jesus. Amen. Let's commit the second half of the year. We're in the second half of the year. And Bible says better is the end of a thing than its beginning. Let's declare that the second half of the year will be better for Equity Assurance as a company, will be better for us as individuals, will be better for us in our family, no ramifications. Let's open our mouth and decree and declare it in the name of the Lord Jesus. That there will be more doors open for Equity Assurance to get more business from our banks, from our brokers, from direct line. Let's open our mouth and pray that doors will be open. The Bible said, I open the door before you that no man can shut. Let's open our mouth and pray that this second half of the year will be better for Equity Assurance as a group in the name of Jesus. More than the first half in the name of Jesus. Not by power, not by might, but by the Spirit in the name of Jesus. Let's open our mouth and decree that we'll close the year with better figure than that of last year in the name of Jesus. Let's declare that this second half of the year will be better for Equity Assurance in the name of the Lord Jesus. Let's open our mouth and we pray. Let's open our mouth and we pray. In Jesus' name. In the name of Jesus. Amen. Why do we need to decree? Why do we need to speak concerning our company? Every day I put Equity Assurance into prayer. Why do we need to do that? As God will have it today, you and I are still speaking from this company. So it behoves on you and I to do what? To speak a word concerning this company. The Bible says, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, they will prosper as well. Let's open our mouth and decree that this second half of this year will be better for this company, even than the first half in the name of the Lord Jesus. Open your mouth and begin to pray. Open your mouth and begin to decree. Father, we declare that the second half of this year will be better for Equity Assurance in the name of the Lord Jesus. The second half will be better for this country in the name of Jesus. The second half will be better for this country in terms of figures, Lord God. 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 Our income, Lord God, will be much more than our expenditure by your grace in the name of Jesus. You will cause, Father, that our income will exceed our expenditure. In this second half of the name of the Lord Jesus, we will close our books, oh God, even with better figure, end of the year, in the name of the Lord Jesus. We'll close our books, oh God, end of the year, oh, with better figure, in the name of the Lord Jesus. In Jesus' name. In the name of Jesus. Lord, we want to thank you. Ancients of this, we want to bless you. We cannot thank you enough, oh God. We thank you for Equity Assurance, oh God, as a company. We thank you for us as individuals, oh God. We thank you for our family. Thank you for what you've done in the first half of the year, oh God, individually and collectively. We say be exalted in the name of Jesus. Lord, we commit this second half of the year into your able hands, oh God. According to your word, it says, better is the end of a thing than its beginning. We decree and declare today that this second half will be better for this company in the name of the Lord Jesus. We will not benefit from it in the name of the Lord Jesus. We declare Equity Assurance will move to greater heights in the name of Jesus. More doors open unto us, oh God, even from clients in the name of Jesus. This brand will cover it to the blood of Jesus. You will be favored by brokers, oh God. You will be favored by financial institutions in the name of Jesus. You will be favored by telecommunication companies in Jesus' name. You will be favored from direct angles in the name of Jesus. More doors open unto this company in the name of the Lord Jesus. We decree and declare Equity Assurance will flourish in the name of Jesus. Solo Group will flourish in the name of Jesus. Both the management and staff of this company will declare you will flourish in the name of Jesus. All our families will flourish in the name of Jesus. We will not report any bad news from the second half of the year in the name of Jesus. We will speak life to everyone associated with this company. We will speak life in the name of Jesus. We will live and will not die in the name of Jesus. We will live and will not die in the name of Jesus. Our health will not fail in the name of Jesus. Our soul will prosper, our spirit will prosper, our bodies will prosper in the name of Jesus. The work of our hands will prosper in the name of Jesus. Equity Assurance will flourish in the name of Jesus. And the company, when they call forth from the right hand, so God, in no distant time, everything will stand out in the name of Jesus. In Jesus' name we are praying. Commit this morning's activity into the able hands of God. We ask for your leadership and direction in Jesus' name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Sister Vivian, God just ministered to me and thank God I did. We give him all the glory. We thank him for his mercy. First and foremost, I like to thank thank the entire management and everybody that participated at the last retreat. That was one of the shortest in terms of time and preparation that we had. And at best, even from the board level, that is the best we have ever attended or organized. So I think we need to appreciate it was a crash one, yes, and the quality of the presentation, the depth of the presentation, yes, and even to one of our major stakeholders who happens to be an accountant, he called me and said, guys, come. You guys have really done a major work on this. That he was trying to form that document. I mean, what he saw, he has to take it back again to, as an actually also do it. And I'll tell you what we did in the last weekend was to start the journey for the next 3 years. Some my people, pay for lack of work. Apart from that, planning. Now, part of what we first need to do is to plan. And I can say this to you, what we've been doing the last couple of 6 months of just planning, we've not started working at all. We've not. So I hope with what you have done now, we're going to tweak, we'll feedback from the board. Now we can now launch fully. Now we've not gone to know what to say anything. The current efficiency is about quiet efficiency. Let's have it all speak for us. You understand? Sorry, you guys blocked me. There is one young man I need to just remind me of your, this will be the last time you remember. Huh? That's okay. That's okay. I think you are the one that called in on Thursday. I got feedback from a mail from African about cancer. And that mail has been consistent for like 3-4 times. And I have to challenge the young man what he was actually doing. I realized even when they sent him mail at 4:30, the guy will attend to that mail. Past 5, the guy will go there to deliver the document. Not because that is closed. I think it's about attitude. And I think, I want us to appreciate them. It shouldn't be just an accident, a one-off. It should be for me. Now, in half, in one way, IBM were synonymous with service. And we can't go low. Unfortunately, the thing we're supposed to be raising the rise. We couldn't get that, but we still get that. I'll stick here on the government. Whatever it is, let's just work along. The other one, we won't be able to do today. The CFO is supposed to come out here to show us some numbers. Maybe by the time the HR is through, I promise you we're going to talk about salary review today. But for a lot of reasons, the CFO, because we want to showcase our 6-month result, we're going to work with numbers. Yes, we're also going to send some documents to Paris for review. For all of this, until the CFO completes his own job, we can now send, so we can reverse that for the next month. It's a session, full session we're going to have. So, you have it first. Who's gone? Nobody from IT. Where's Usola or Agnes at work? We will have to shut these people down.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, sir. Good morning, Mars. Happy New Month. Happy New Month. And you're all looking beautiful. All right. On Friday we sent a mail that we're going to review a book titled "Eat That Frog." I'm going to show you the book. This is it. This is it. Eat That Frog. It's not a very big book, but it's not a storybook either. It's not a fictional book. It's a book that's full of nuggets that you can't ignore. So when the MD asked me to read this book over the weekend and present, I thought I was going to read it in maybe 2-3 hours, but I realized that, in fact, I found it difficult to summarize the book because every line, every sentence, is pregnant with so much meaning, things that you just want to share. So what I've done is I've taken some chapters from the book, and I'm going to try to summarize it as much as possible. So the title of the book is "Eat That Frog," and I asked, "Eat That Frog, sir?" By Brian Tracy. Yes. I asked my daughter, one of my daughters, to go to my laptop bag and pick a book titled "Eat That Frog." And I said, why you will do that? She said, you want to read a book and you want to cook a frog and eat. And I said, no, that is not what the book is about. Of course, you need to understand. But I was wondering why someone would title a book "Eat That Frog." Why frog? Why not something that we can eat? But then I realized that a frog is not something you want to eat at all. I know that there are some people that eat frogs. Well, we hear that the Chinese people eat frogs, but it's really not something you want to eat. So this book is actually about things that are important that we don't want to do, things that we like to procrastinate, things that we like to, move and say we'll do it later, that actually affects our performance of the job and actually affects our life too at the end of the day. So that's what we're going to talk about. And as I was, just meditating on how I was going to present this, I just pictured a scenario in equity assurance. And I tried to write like a short story. I'm just going to read it out to us before I start to present. So, on the first working day in January, the MD CEO of Equity Assurance PLC, Mr. Moruf Akampa, announces to all the staff of Equity Assurance PLC that eating frogs is the new strategy that will move the company forward. So, he asks the executive management and the strategy team to share frogs to each and every staff on a plate. Beautiful plates with wonderful cutlery. But all we have on those plates are frogs, tadpoles, nuts, fruits, and a few vegetables to aid our appetite. So, as the frogs and other items were shared, I suddenly noticed that some people had bigger, uglier, and fatter frogs than some. Some had smaller frogs. Some didn't have as much tadpoles as other people. But essentially, everyone had a frog to eat. And so, by the time the frogs were shared on the plates, conversations began. People started to talk. Some marketers said, why are my frogs bigger than others? I have the biggest and ugliest frogs. While some said, I will take up the challenge to eat my frogs. The HR team says, Mr. MD, we have never eaten frogs in our life, and therefore we cannot do it now. We will have to go to China to learn how to eat frogs. And we cannot afford it at the moment. That is what the HR team told the MD. But we will eat the snacks and the tadpoles. Then the retail unit said, these frogs look ugly, big, and fat. And they wondered what they could do to make it look attractive so that they could eat it. So they decided to decorate the frog. They put makeup on the frog, they baked the frog, they just made it look beautiful. But yet, they didn't eat the frog. The frog was still staring at them. Then, the internal people in the internal audit, they got discouraged by the size of their frog. And they postponed the eating of the frog until they had enough morale to eat the frog. So they comforted themselves by chatting on their phones, browsing the internet, just to console themselves before they gather momentum and morale to eat their frog. Okay. The people in the finance department said, no, MD, we cannot eat our frog until the people in the IT department eat their frog. So our eating frog is tied to the other department. We cannot eat our frogs now. And so they made no attempt to eat the frog, and the frog still stayed staring at them. Then the underwriter said, what kind of new strategy is this? This is so unfair and unrealistic. Eating frogs. We cannot eat these frogs. And they start to analyze the eating frogs until close of work. They didn't eat the frogs. The staff in claims department said, we want to eat these frogs. And so they said, let's have a meeting and discuss how to eat the frogs. And they sat down to overanalyze how to eat the frogs. And they had the meeting for 10 hours, but they didn't eat the frog. Only the admin department decided to eat their frog. So they took on the big frogs first, and they ate it. And when they started eating, they realized that actually the frog is tasty and satisfying. The next day, unknown to us, more frogs I'm just using that. You have to, it has to be a decision. Then it has to be followed with a discipline and a determination. And that should also apply to our work in the office on a daily basis. You have to decide, every day you come into this office, you will have to decide that I am going to get this done. It has to be a decision. It has to be a deliberate, a conscious decision that I am going to do this. When you're done with that, you have to be disciplined because things will fly in from left, right, and center. We come to the office every day. Well, I have a practice. I have a diary, I have a journal. I write down the things I want to do. I will call Gabriel, I'll call Daniela, we'll sit down, I'll add their own to my list so that I'll follow up on them. But guess what? There are times that out of the 15 things I've written down to do, sometimes I don't do any. Because one major task that you never anticipated just comes up and knocks everything up. So these kind of things happen. So you have to make a decision, a conscious, deliberate decision that I'm going to get this done. You have to be disciplined and you have to be determined. One secret is that if you have 2 big frogs to eat, if you have 2 major tasks with deadlines at almost the same time, start with the biggest and the ugliest frog. Start with the task that looks Herculean, that looks like you cannot achieve at that moment. You know? Okay, so this book actually outlines about 20, and I'm not going to go through all of them, outlines 21 ways to stop procrastinating and get more done in less time, because all you will ever have is 24 hours. Time will never be added. So, one of the first things you need to do is to set the table. Should you want to eat frog, you have to set the table. And what does that entail? Setting clear goals, objectives, and steps to achieving your results. How do you want to do it? How do you want to do it? You've been asked to open a new retail unit. That's a frog. How are you going to do it? You will have to sit down. You have to set clear goals. You have to set objectives and steps. There must be steps on how to do it. Okay? And the clearer the steps, the lesser your chances of procrastinating. Some of the things that cause procrastination are vagueness, when things are not clear. You're just given a task. It's not clear. You're not even sure how you want to do it. Confusion. You're not sure how this thing is to be done. And not knowing the order of how it should be done. One of the things that I love to do personally, I love to write. I write all the time. In fact, I think I write too much because sometimes I'm like, this thing you're writing, you're still going to type it. You can't just type it. But the truth of the matter is, when you write, it's like architecture. It just brings out the plan from your head to put it on paper. We just reviewed Jack Welch, Straight from the Gods. And when he became CEO, if you remember, he went to eat in a restaurant and he picked a piece of tissue. You remember? Tissue paper. And that was how he redesigned GE, on a piece of tissue paper. All because it was already in his head and he was able to bring it up. So I would advise strongly that we should learn to write things down and set deadlines for ourselves. Plan every day in advance is the second thing we need to do. When we get home, I know we have family, children, and all that, but somehow you should be able to sit down and tell yourself, okay, I wasn't able to do this yesterday. These are the things I'm going to start with. It just makes you feel prepared. It makes you feel ready. You don't come into the office and, you know, when you're not prepared, honestly, you will just realize that it's 11 o'clock and you've done nothing. Time will just go like that. So you need to plan, even if, you know, you have a piece of paper in your bag or something, you know, just scribble that I'm going to do this tomorrow. Plan your day ahead in advance. Planning is bringing the future into the present so that you can do something about it now. I can do something about my future now. I can't do it when it's already happening. Yeah? Taking an action without thinking things through is the prime cause of failure. And I know that a lot of times we get ourselves mixed up with that. We don't sit down to think things through. We don't sit down to plan. If you don't plan, you're gonna fail, obviously. And a few minutes of planning, sometimes maybe we feel like to sit down and start thinking of how to go through the day. Is that not a waste of time? Just get to it. But a few minutes of planning every day will save you hours of wasted time. And finally, on this chapter, proper prior planning prevents poor performance. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. Apply the 80-20 rule. Now, this rule was named after, it's called the Pareto principle. It was named after this Italian economist that believes that the 20% input will result to 80% output of anything. He believes that 20% of staff actually produce 80% of the result. That is what he thinks. He believes that it is only the 20% of people in the society that actually make the most contribution. So this book is suggesting that we apply that even to our daily tasks. That 20% of your activities will amount to 80% of your result. So what's the wise thing to do? Concentrate on the 20. When you list out everything that you need to do, you realize that one or two or three of them are standing out. And if you know that those ones are standing out, then you focus on them, you put your energy on them. The hardest part of your task is getting started. Once you start it, you'll be motivated to continue. The time required to do an important job, do we know that it is also the same amount of time you use to do things that are not important? Let me take the time, for example, that we spend on social media, chatting, phone calls. Convert that time into something more productive. You realize that you will achieve so much more than you would ever imagine. Effective people will eat the biggest and ugliest frogs first. You go for the most difficult, seemingly difficult task first. Consider the consequence. So far, this is like my best chapter in this book because it talks about the art of thinking, the art of being future-oriented. The potential consequence of any task or activity is determined by how important that task is to you and your company. So, how important something is dependent on the consequence of what happens when it's done or when it is not done. People who take a long view of their lives and career, people who think ahead, people who try to see what is the future with what I'm doing now. How does what I'm doing now, what is it going to dovetail to in the future? People who think like that, they make better decisions about their time and their activities. People who are future-oriented, who are goal-getters, the way they use their time is different from the way some of us use our time. They are focused, they cut out a lot of unnecessary activity from their lives. Sometimes you have to delay gratification and pleasure and make sacrifices so that you can enjoy later. We all believe that, don't we? Sometimes we have to make sacrifices. Painful, difficult, but that is the reward you get later. Sometimes deadlines are an excuse to procrastinate. Why? So, for example, Taiwo meets me and says, Japari, we have a NICOM report to submit. And then I go, Taiwo, when is it? She now says, just do the report. And then I come and meet her and say, Taiwo, please, when is the deadline for this report? And then she tells me, it's July 29th. Just July 10th, I have 3 weeks to go. So I relax. I don't bother. And then on the 28th of July, I now remember, I have Taiwo's report to give her. What do I now do? Rush. I now rush through that report. And what happens? I am under pressure. Or sometimes the morning of the day, I start rushing to do the report. I find that I'm under pressure, which can lead to stress. I make a lot of mistakes. And I have to redo and redo and redo because of the mistakes, making me spend so much time on a task that I would have used lesser time if I'd done it earlier. So we need to sit down and consider the consequence of everything that we do. Consider the consequence of the way we behave, our attitude to work. Very, very important. Practice creative procrastination. The act of thoughtfully and deliberately deciding upon the exact things you're going to do right now. Why? Because you cannot do everything that needs to be done. Some things have to be moved till tomorrow. Some things have to be moved to later. So the important thing is for you to know which one to do now, which one to do later. Cut down on time-consuming activities. Watching TV, for example, chatting, browsing on our phones, hanging out, and instead spend time with our families, spend time reading, spend time doing some exercise. Okay? Use the ABCDE method. It's a very simple priority setting technique that you can use every day. It will require that you write, you think on paper. It also helps you to identify the shoulds and the musts. The shoulds are things that I should do it. You know, I should do this. The musts are I must do it. So this technique helps you to identify that. So I will just tell you what ABCDE is. A means things that are important and must be done. Those are the big, ugly, fat frogs that must be eaten. B are things that are important, but the consequences are mild if they don't get done. C are things that are nice to do, fantastic to do, and no consequences for failure. For example, I promised I was going to call a friend, maybe a colleague that didn't show up to work, or a colleague wedding or something. It's a nice thing to do. I should do that. But if I don't do it, no consequence. D means to delegate, things you can delegate so that you can have time for A, so that you can have time for important things. And then E are things that you should eliminate. These are usually tasks that are very important, that were important at some point, but are no longer relevant. You should be able to identify those things. And yes. Okay, I think this is the last one I want to talk about. Focus on key results. Focus on your key result areas. And as a HR person, there are some things that only me will do. Those are my key result areas. Nobody else will do it. There are some things that only the head of underwriting will do. So those are your key result areas. Things for which you are completely responsible. So if anything goes wrong, you take the responsibility. Your failure to perform in a critical result area, please let's get this. Your failure to perform in a critical result area will affect the entire company and will lead to the end of your job, because this is what you were hired to do. So if you cannot do it, then it's obvious what needs to be done. So we need to focus on our key result areas. And that will entail that we identify those key result areas. So you have to sit with yourself and say, what are those quick wins for me? What are those things that if I don't do it, this department, this unit is in trouble? And then you grade yourself. How am I doing in this area? What do I need to improve? One area of weakness can affect the effectiveness of every other area. Let me give an example with myself. So Japari pays leave allowances early, he pays salary early, you know, anything that has to do with paying staff, their welfare packages, she does it early. But every time she's asked to recruit, she does it late, she doesn't do it on time, she recruits the wrong person. Nobody will remember that I do any good, because this one weakness has affected the whole outlook, and that is how it is. So sometimes it's not that we are ineffective or we don't know the job, but because we are lagging in one area and it seems to have overshadowed every other thing that we do. Okay. One question that I want us to go with this morning is you should ask yourself for this month of July, what one skill, if I develop and did in an excellent fashion, would have the greatest positive impact on my life and on my career? What one thing do you want to improve on? What one thing do you want to enhance? And when I say one skill, it could even be interpersonal relationship. The way you relate with your colleagues, the way you relate with your boss. You know, it could be your negotiation skills as a marketer. You know, it could be your computer competence, your computer skills. Whatever it is, ask yourself this question and answer it. But the good news is that all business skills are learnable. You can learn it. Nobody was born, you know, to do these things. I mean, people learn it. So we can learn it if we put our hearts to it. Thank you. Okay, so
I think we can do better.
let me say something. With the permission of the executive management and some members of the board here. We were at a board retreat on Friday and Saturday. And I had one takeaway that I want to share with my colleagues. And the takeaway for me was communication. Communication. The only way that you can actually influence and make an impact in the life of another person, whether it's your colleague or your subordinate, is through communication. And communication would entail that you have some kind of relationship with someone. So I just want to encourage us, equity staff. We always say we are a family, we're a family. Family people talk. I talk to my siblings like all the time. All the time. So I want to encourage engagement, conversation, discussion. Talk to your boss, talk to your subordinate. Let's be talking. Let's share knowledge. Let's make an effort to impact one another positively. There should not be a day that, that it shouldn't be heard that some staff are not talking to some staff. It should not be heard here if you want to be a family. Because you never know what impact, what influence that person will have over you. So thank you again for listening. It was an honor for me to stand here and talk to you.
You guys can't understand why I actually stand up. I stood up for a reason, and I think I'll like us to appreciate our music. I think that was yesterday evening. I called her. I said, "Oh, can you help me send out an email? How far do you know it? Can you send an email to this team and tell them we'll not be holding this session together?" She said, "No. I'm going to send that email. I will do that. And I'll come here to do it because we promised Cerebram, so why should we? Because I don't want us to do it in Africa. Number one, the CFO is not ready with the numbers, which we want to share with you. And number two, another knew we had a pastor in the house, another knew we had a storyteller in the house. So, on a more serious note, you see, you never can imagine. She's a mother. We went for a retreat together. We finished very late. She went back. She had to go and pick the kids this morning. On a more serious note, I think now one is. There was one cartoon I saw some couple of years ago. The referee in the football match, one of the players scored. I know what he did. I'm going to carry that player. He was the referee. And we were like, I told you that guy was partial from the one. So, Japari, I appreciate that. Give it up. Can we see that? I think I'll use one outside program to just summarize it. Japari, you have it translated. It's a Goro. You have to abandon.
A small kola nut is bigger than.
It's better.
It's better than a big stone.
You know, a rock. I think with the permission of IQ, to John, the Igbo people appreciate kola better. They treat kola better than any other tribe. You go to any garden, there's no kola. Anything can happen. And then what's it's not the length of time we use in analyzing the book. It's not the size of the book, but the content. The content. The subject matter. Has it been properly dealt with? Has it been covered? I said one thing, I used that for training agents, one of 2021. It's called PP, and I've discussed that with a couple of other guys. It's called pay now and pay later. Or you play now and you pay later. Either way is PP. What do I mean? I love Chujolo. The other guy, she said it. You love, the teaching person, love to read when you're in school, does everything properly. When you go fucking all the time, you go to work, you do everything. When it's exam time, that's why you see them coming out. The management have been messing up something. No, we need to protest now. There's no water, there's no electricity. They don't want the exam to work. You know why? Because they're not fully prepared. Separately, you can even your career, you see some people, the way they go about it, they go to do a lot. I love to use that word, a lot. And the other guy goes to do the normal thing, goes for calls, goes to do this. At the end of the year, money to stand for promotion. The other guy is eating it, the other guy is not eating it, but you know the other guy. Even in our individual life, he said something the other time. Which one will be the turning point in your own career of your life? 2001, I can't forget. I saw an advert in the next week. Fed Foundation, it was for Adela that set up that in the school for GT. They're still there in Nigeria. I remember I was on 500,000 per annum for 4 years, 2001 to 2005. When they say, pass, fail, promote for class. I'll go there, I'll retire, you can have my point. But even after that money, at the end of the money, I'm supposed to take over for 20,000, but after taking out of it, I'll take 5,000. It sounds funny. One of my colleagues then will have to come. They put it like, you're the head of master. Let me teach you how to do it. You're not supposed to do it. After the guy, teach you how to do it. Whenever I come back, I try to retire. I say, no, you don't do this. I'm telling you, you're not smart. I don't want to be smart at all. Let me do the right. Now, half of that secret, I have to go and appeal to them and take foundation. You know what? I can't play this in the phone. I'm not going to stagger it. Although I'm that's where I met it that work straight on the house. That's what I met my mentor. She gave me that book. And that book, the one thing I've got taught is over 50. And the number of people that have also read that book, they're over 200. And I'm sure the life will never be finished. Now, a decision I took a couple of years ago. Now, not just impacted my own life, but it also impacted the life of other people. Remember, people, whatever you do, like the speaking, it's either you pay now so that you can play later. Or you will play now so that you pay later. Either way, you pay. Somebody, you know, all this was that child that there's some sense in the nonsense. Somebody sent one to me. I think 2 weeks ago. A farmer went to the farm. He lost one of his valuable roots. When he came out, couldn't find enough for all these small boys in the farm. You guys, anybody that goes into that farm to get me a watch, I'll give you a very good deal. They don't want to get look everywhere, couldn't get it. The sack. So you now okay, time off, let's go. One young boy just went back home. You didn't know one chance to go back in there. You know, looked at him. If all of you together could not find that, so why would you find it? He said, it has nothing to do, so that's your matching. Go back. The young man went back, lo and behold, within a minute, they dropped the bag. And the man goes after, how come? How did you find the way to work? He said, it was very busy and simple. There was no body there. So what you have to do is to listen very well. And better work. So it walked to that direction. So how many times do we take time to plan? That going back was planning and to listen, not to go look for it. He said it. Planning comprises a major part of our work. I'm not going to take our time today because we still have so much we want to go from afternoon. But I can be rest assured. He said one thing. Unfortunately, no one there. I think the time will have to make a sacrifice for a better tomorrow. Some farmers, well, I mean, when they harvest their farm, they keep some seed. They don't consume everything. That part they don't consume, they go back again to plant. And when they plant those, what happens? But when you harvest and you eat everything, what happens? The same with notice of the right? I think I will take 1 or 2, 3 questions and comments. So we can all go back to our various. Oh, sorry. We'll do the celebrant. Sorry. But before the celebrant, comments, questions, I think we take 3. Because we started a bit late today. But let me say this to you. My other life now, but we need to. I know you should student. The staff was one, the day you know it's going to be, or I mean, it happens this one, but occasionally. Let's come and do that. On Monday it's usually a bit fast. The staff boss usually leaves at 6. I know the environment want to say, what we continue. Let's come quarter to 6, only on Monday. They're leaving at 7, leave at quarter to 7, build that time in. I think it shall be well. And what you have after the session on Saturday, when I looked back again and I was like, oh, we have the people to make that. After today, then, the party administrators also confirmed to me that we have the resources now. I don't want our case to do like that. I want our case to do like that of Rwanda. After they went through a civil war, a major civil war. One of the best places to do business today, one of the best places to do today is Rwanda. You can go find out. With all the resources we have, we have everything, we are still struggling. But guess what? It's not about the resources, it's about the will of the people. I remember the old man, the sage and the young man. Our destiny is in our hands. It is our will. Allow it to fly, or we do. So, common question. I must say something. I love people. I love feedback. When you're not talking, then there's a fundamental problem. I love feedback. There has to be a comment. It's either to what the paper should be presented, or an advice. There has to be something. You understand it again? I'll force you to talk.
Yes, we appreciate all the this is the Japadia, but the only conclusion or the only question I will have super simple is about this issue of developing and developing oneself. We realize that some time ago now, staff are trying to do everything possible to develop themselves. But what we realize is that with all what the staff have been trying to do, the past government have refused to do something for those people that have excelled in their development. Take for instance, we have some professionals, the people that have strived very hard to get qualified in ACI exam. That's that foreign institute. Going to 2 years now, those of us that have qualified, nothing has been done. We are still standing on our position as we have before we go. So we are not blaming the present government. We are appealing to the present government to please seek our reference of in their qualified so that we can feel longing as somebody who is qualified.
Thank you. Yes, David.
I think I was taught that we are given two tasks. You start with the one that is before moving to the difficult one, because if you start with the most difficult one, you may likely spend the whole time on that most difficult one. But Mr. Japan told us this morning that if you are given a two tasks, you should start with the difficult one. Can you just
And I say that difficult is a relative term. What is difficult for you might not be difficult for me. But what I would say is, what task is most important for you to deliver on? Those are the tasks that you put your energy and your focus on, especially when you come in the morning, when you're still fresh. Those are the
it's about me. And I know I've learned some new things too. Because I feel it's all about the passion, the devotion, being the dog that eats the longest now. Because I've been that for time. Where I worked, my boss always says, do this, do this now. I think that's the time. And I always say, I'm taking ownership. Be responsible. You see abilities and you respond to the abilities. So, as regards cookies, does it way that came from
Sure. No,
last
I want to click.
there are two jobs, and one I'm not on it's a commercial, licensing. So, and the other, I'm very, very familiar with this. So, I have to deal with that one first. So, I have to meet this. The other one, I can easily.
Thank you very much. Sorry.
We see something basically every day we are working to our hands and see and actually make more of it.
Okay. Thank you. You know the other thing. Someone was asking to say Baba. Because he didn't say Baba one time, by the time you start saying Baba, he said it over 100 times. Oh, we asked you to stop. Only was going to now you are. We want the question. Yeah.
Every organization was asset staff. When staff conditions are zero, you should be planning to get zero results. House we have two ways of it. We have the upfront expectancy. With the upfront, the word of the mouth, encouragement, not lifting. Learning that is giving us strength to wake us up from slumbering, from our good points. This is the second half of the year. We are still running with the same upfront. The expectancy aspect of it, not forthcoming. I want to deal with this management. That if asset motivation expectancy is zero, the result is not going to be zero. I want to create because of the new management. I want to get a new result. So things are not friendly with staff. I want to create that direction to be looking to get to the policy.
Thank you. Yes, sir. So after this, you take Kabita.
So my question is, she made mention of communication. I think sometimes being left behind, whereby discussion, maybe particular issue is being discussed, instead of using official languages in the office, with particular dialect use in discussion. Sometimes I feel I'm not part of that discussion. So I don't know if such can be maybe official language like sometimes in my department. Instead of using like English to discuss something.
Hello. Anita, sorry, from which Okay, Josh. Okay. Yes.
I just want to add to.
Hello.
I just want to add to go with Jafari review.
Hello, guys.
I just want to add to the program with Jafari review. is all about procrastination. And if you actually know the meaning of procrastination, you just have to stop it. Procrastination is a killer of time and a waster. Basically, I noticed in my home, there are times we have an agreement as husband and wife and kids that we're going to do this and all that. We find out that my husband keep procrastinating, we keep procrastinating to the level that the children are now like, come, you guys are procrastinating. When are we going on this holiday? The passport is ready, this is ready. You are saying tomorrow, your tomorrow is not finishing. So whenever I want to promise them and they say, you guys always procrastinate, we are not actually down with that anymore. So it's actually a shame for us. So we talk to ourselves that, don't make promises, don't say what we are not going to do, so that we won't disappoint these children. So the book is all about, you have to be your own personal cheerleader. Like I was privileged to be at the retreat, and the take home for me from the chairman was, you practice regularly, practice what you do. He actually said, when he started talking to people as in facing audiences in difficult tasks, that he used to talk to his baby at the age of 3 months to practice what he's going to talk to the audience. You're going to be your own cheerleader. You don't have to wait for somebody to motivate you to do what you need to do. Pick the best out of what you want to do and do it fine. And encourage yourself, talk to the mirror severally, correct yourself, your diction and everything. Just be your own cheerleader. And we should stop procrastinating. It doesn't make us to achieve anything. Thank you.
So if I miss, because I didn't drop, I'll pick from India and Madam. We're about to comment. I don't know what we're doing, right? But it's also very fun. Now, if you look at the current topic, the structure of the way it is, we have so many of our offices, one of the five. You understand? Now, what we're saying is this: we want to revamp the building. We look at this staircase. Where we have the stair, it's almost half the size of this building. Now, we're saying, let's use first and second floor. The second time you come from second and third floor. You are going to but after the you're going to renovate. There's something which you said, on the wall. I think Mr. Blank can testify. My other office. What we did, and like you said, remember who my chief. One of those guys, when he was leaving the whole so that I can attack that thing. And like you said, once you come in the morning, you see that thing on your wall. Even your own personal goal and target. Always put it where you see it all the time. If you're in the car, you're in your room. Put it when you wake up or when you want to sleep. Put it where you see it. So we're going to put some knowledge in the wall. Why are you doing that? So we'll do that. So we can't do that now. We have to know what to do that. You talked about people qualifying, unfortunately, it's a pyramid something. I love to use that. I never know why those people that qualify were never promoted. But you can only get promoted if there is an opening. If there's no opening, because you qualify, doesn't mean that you have to promote you. If you are needed direct report to the manager, you're an assistant manager, or deputy manager. Now you qualify. It doesn't mean they have to promote you immediately. You can do separately. But there's an opening they have to do. And that's why I talked about something else, and delivery application. I told you I wasn't kidding. When I said 2001 to 2005, I was an 8 year. No promotion, no salary increment, nothing whatsoever. Why? There was no opening. And we couldn't afford to pay. But that was what I call I can't deliver application. The next job I got, I had 5 times the salary I was earning. I never said because they didn't pay me or they didn't increase my salary, such showing my teacher. What I realized majorly, no matter how good the place is, no matter how good the meal is, if you serve a very delicious jollof rice, and you now put some water to it, a bit of shit by the side, nobody will eat. With all your qualification, you have the wrong attitude, nobody will touch you. At times, promotion could be subjective. I tell you, promotion could be subjective at times. After putting down all the indices, all the factors, then you now say, okay, what about this? Oh, that's a wrong attitude. No. That person is not going to. And I say this to you, I'll repeat again. No organization guarantees job security. The only thing that guarantees you job security is yourself. You make yourself indispensable to the system. Because you are ACI, ACA, I'm sorry, respectfully. We have a speech, and you know what someone says, simple knowledge is not poor. You have to show substance and value to complement that qualification. You can be rest assured those people, HR is working, I mean, we've actually discussed on them, but I realize also, in the same system, some people have been on the same spot for 9, 7, 8 years. No, it's never done. Two things will happen. Man holds school of thought. You see that you are allowing people to waste your time, or you are wasting the complete time. I'm sorry, respectfully. I'm not going to keep it disgruntled child. We both have our time. And I say this to just, when you keep it disgruntled child, it's not productive to yourself, it's not useful to yourself, and it's not useful to that person. I'm sorry, I want to use your name. I'm sorry to sound somehow. Particular organization I work with, it was time for review when we met and there are some issues. So the chairman now said, they get some people that have been to the left. So now said they go to special of town. So he now gave me a letter to the step now. I looked at it. And I walked up with him. It was the one in charge of that. When I walked up to him, I said, I'd like to see you. He said, no. I was sending you to the UK for 3 months. I said, okay. Not a country of the UK, that's the story. I have this letter to the church. He said, Moro, this opportunity was given me. He didn't give me to order. He didn't have the conversation. I said, then I have to show you. What's that for information? As much as you from the society, I can also be something about it. My father never sent me to school because of this company. And this company was never established because of it. So, sir, I'll see you in the if you can't meet up with it, I'm giving you a work. How will you? There's one thing you need to know. Even as a doctor, I never had a job like that. But I felt, I'm sorry to you, that particular situation, if you go through Madra, you know what I call orphan. If you are coming from a weaker partner in a Madra, you're treated like an orphan. And I said to you, I said, sir, what was interesting? And I said, sir, what can I say that? See, if your objective or your goal in life, you can't meet it in your current situation. I pray for you. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But guess what? You need everything to be this person. One thing, we will never be current pandemic. We never promise to work with them. But see, I think it's Saturday that we do control. I know why we are Thomas. If you want to be beaten by a snake, when you see a millipede or a worm, you think it's still a snake. But I say this to you with all sense of modesty. I pray God will feel alive. We can't be very sure, but whatever we promise, the one we can do, I'm very honest. Even if you put a gun on my head, I said, sorry, you can't fly. For the truth. Together, I want us to play very strongly. My brother that spoke the other time, I said I'm not going to talk about that. Expectancy and what do you call it, the other one? Upright. It's very important. Switch off. Can I manage with you? This is not switch off. I'm not going to switch off anything. No. And this is the reality on which it is. So tell me because you don't have faith, because you have legs. Some people doesn't have legs yet. So what happened if this company has gone down? We're saying let's make a sacrifice for today, for us to have a better tomorrow. We have issues. I mean, I mentioned it the other time, even on salary alignment, people on the same level, where you have somebody having almost 2-3 million difference. You have even a manager having more than a senior manager. These are challenges. So how do you correct all those ones? I mean, we can't go and rush into salary issues. You first correct those anomalies. And now move on. I'm telling you, if you can see it, I can see it. There's light down the tunnel. That's why I call this young man is from the same system. Now, how much, student, how much did I have to give you last week? 10 million. Now, you're just building capacity back, you're building confidence back into most of these people. And once you are strongly want to appeal, if anybody will deceive you, I cannot destroy anyone, we will never deceive you. We will never deceive you. Our greatest asset is our people. And I don't know, in fact, all the places I've worked in the last couple of months, what they're fighting for, we've been fighting, she's been acting for more to develop our people. I think for her, she loves to pay, she loves to sort out stuff. You know, I say, Madam, come on. We don't have the one to say, no, we have to do this, and before you know it, I don't know what to do. Maybe you put something in my mouth. I'll sign for training. No, but for training, after we're not going to compromise it at all. We build capacity in our people. The difference between a successful organization and a non-successful organization in terms of the people. And we invest in our people. That I can assure you. Fortunately, what's his name? Why is that occurring? I don't know from Adam. I met him in the system, but there's a gap we need to fill. And that young man happens to be the person to fill that gap. That guy was sent to Cote d'Ivoire, and he will continue to go to Cote d'Ivoire to develop. I mean, for what Nikon requirement says now, every organization has to be more than a try. Demand and supply. And I know we have to have quality. So now if tomorrow the police get higher than any of us there, I was saying because he's not my family, I don't know him from Adam. So I just want to show me a kid for our nation. Even after qualifying as a chartered insurer, what's the next level? It's not there. What happens to other learning and other skills we need to acquire? Let's say alone is not enough any longer. See, what takes you here is not enough to keep you here. You do more than what you come to get to that level. One extra mile. Guys, we need to do more. So, like I said, next month, we're going to talk fully on the issue of our salary. We're all going to show the numbers. Are you married? You're married? With kids? Oh, God bless you. How many wives? No, it's a fact. What is that? It's a fact. How many wives? Only one. How many kids? 3 kids. Okay. Now, currently, I'm sorry, you give your wife X naira fee, and you give your children Y naira with your current earning. Now, we now say we want to reduce your salary. We reduce your salary already. You are earning 100,000 for now, say we want to pay you 60,000. And you are getting on, and your wife is telling you, baby, honey, you have to increase my allowance. The children are coming to you also, daddy, you have to increase my monthly something. What will you do? No capacity. No, there has to be capacity. What is? God bless you. That's a simple analogy of what you are asking us to do. I wasn't in this business before. Income was going down for the past 4 years. And things are just picking up. If you don't come to practical meeting, we're not running anything inside of it. First quarter was okay. Assuming we maintain what we did in first quarter, we'll talking about a different story. But I mean, don't let me, you know, we go, I mean, buy. I hope I answer your question. You answer your question. I didn't answer your question. You answer your question. So I think it makes it. So, Madam Bande. Oh, sorry. I think let's be guided. This is a corporate environment, and it's very common with the Mbaki people. Yes, and that's not me.
Okay, what are you talking?
And we have, all of us Nigerians, we have that problem. Lagos is more cosmopolitan than any other place. Please, let's be properly guided. When you listen, please, I mean, the guy is feeling out. It's true. So, please, I mean, ensure that when you now leave this environment, you can do your own vaccine that. Wait, you don't have to carry it, just wait. Ladies, can you help them, please? Okay, just a minute. No knife.
No, this knife.
The celebrant for you, can they come up, please? Juice celebrant. Nobody for you. Huh? Sorry, this is working on tonight. Okay. Sorry, no what? Okay, no what? Can we do July together? Sorry, I think the last time we did that. We did May, yes. So we did May already, Sorry, if you are not, we can't walk back. So can we have July outside that?
Okay, let's combine something.
Can we have July people outside? Because of the cost, we can't do another one again next one for July. So once you do next one, we will bring So, sorry, are you July? Come on now. Madam. Come. If you go there. Okay. No, hello. Hello, Tino. I think I'm July too. I'm not too sure. I think So you forgot now.
This is our call.
All right, we're going to sing for them for the birthday. So everybody, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Good Lord bless you. Good Lord bless you. May the good Lord bless you always. May the good Lord bless
happy returns of the day. Long life and prosperity.
Photo da. Who's it about that?
For they are jolly good fellows. And so say all of us. And so say all of us. Hooray! And so say all of us. Hooray! They are jolly good fellows. For they are jolly good fellows. They are jolly good fellows. And so say all.
Hello. I noticed something now. I think, sorry, hello. See, there's no way we work together as a team, we work together as colleagues. We will step on each other's toes. Let's try as much as possible. The way we conduct each other. I mean, the way we conduct our actions and inactions, the way we conduct ourselves in the office, I think is very important. Something happened, man, and I take a second to each. I didn't like it. I think we shouldn't give out pity to anybody. Yes, and let's try as much as possible to manage each other. Because I want to pass, I don't want to pass. Shouldn't be. So let's try as much as possible. There's no perfect situation, no perfect environment, no perfect family. I probably said something the other time. I still realize some people allow they don't speak to each other, even in the same office. See, good morning is not part of the job. If it is part of doing the business, you can return. Oh, well, if not, do the business. But most importantly, it's better you are friendly. A husband and a wife. It was a story, but I think it was sent on WhatsApp. They were having issues. And the husband was in the bedroom, the wife was in the. And the other, no, this one, it was not even in the car. The other car, the car was another one. The husband fell in the bedroom. He hit his head against the. But I was calling, honey. And the guy broke to death. Now, assuming they're talking, you never can tell who you're from here, where you will be the next time. Even if you don't, let's tolerate each other. Let's try. Please. So, where's the. Okay. Young. Okay, I'm done. So, you want to call me for that? I can say that.
No praise and adoration to Almighty Allah, the most beneficent and most merciful. The cherisher and nourisher, the sustainer, and the Lord of the world. We give thanks and give praise to Him, who has made today this weekend. We plan to have this gathering today, and we can only learn. We're making it coming to reality is God free. So we thank God for today. And we pray that all we have to do from the beginning of this month to the end should be successful. And His blessing should be with it. And also, we should, by His grace, we should achieve beyond our expectation. And also, our endeavors, the Almighty endeavors, and that are self-desires. Because we all have that place, that thing, that communication with we and our God personally. With God got everything for us. And that
اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين انعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين سبحان ربك رب العزه عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we'll call it a day for this meeting while we go to our various offices.